each go through individually and show a little bit about what we've done in XR in the past and a little bit about a background. I'm Jason. I started Trigger 13 years ago. We're a mixed reality agency. We have 150,000 hours in dev experience around mixed reality, and we're working with Devon as well as other kind of sports leagues as well, so NHL and NBA. Can run a quick reel. So we do both consumer and enterprise-based XR. On the consumer side, you'll see a great spread from these are the more simple activations using social AR through Snap and Facebook and Instagram, and then also web AR. And then into apps and modules, so where you can build AR into ideally in an existing app with a user base. And then we feel retail is a big opportunity for us. In-store, I think where AR is part of a purchasing process is great. And we do a lot of location as well. So this is live in concert. This is the Lego Museum in Denmark, where it's installation-based mixed reality. This one you actually built with brick and then the fish come to life. We do innovation work for our clients on the sports side as well. This is for the NHL. First time real-time stat tracking from the game. We even did a XR oven for Whirlpool. But this is just to show a spread of all the different things that can be done with mixed reality, and it is changing day by day. So something we'll talk about on this panel is the technology improvements over time. But it is changing at a really rapid rate, and it opens up more opportunities. Oh. Do you want to?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Devon Fox from the PGA Tour. I'm Director of Digital Platform Innovation. I just wanted to send a few highlights to this group to show you guys everything that we've been working on in the past 3 years. We've done everything from 360 videos to interactive VR games to live VR with our partners at Intel. We've experimented with augmented reality and mixed reality in a couple different instances as well, so you'll see some of those examples here. But really what we're focused on is trying to create unique and exciting opportunities for our fans to see our sport and see our players in ways that they've never seen them before. And so for us, that's really what it's all about. We don't do these experiments just to do them. Sometimes we like to experiment for experiment's sake and to test new technology, but there always has to be a payoff for the fan in the end. And so that's really what this is all about. So I'll let this video play and speak for itself.
Real-time tournament streaming that can be accessed around the globe through Twitter and the Samsung Gear VR headset. By bringing fans some of the most iconic holes in the world to VR, PGA Tour is innovating a live golf experience for fans everywhere.
Yeah, Cam and the Coulter Oosthuizen. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Take a deep breath and swing into the famous Island Green at TPC Sawgrass with a full immersive experience. Along with innovative 360 videos, the PGA Tour is developing interactive golf games that truly embrace everything that virtual reality has to offer. PGA Tour VR, developing and creating virtual golf entertainment.
Hi everybody, my name is Mike Ivins. I'm a marketing producer for the Red Sox. I have a background in photography. I spent about a decade with the team as the head photographer. My role has, in the past couple of years, evolved to be a content producer focused on virtual reality, 360 content, and augmented reality, which you could see here in the slides. Like Devon, we're really trying to engage our fan base and show not only our current players, but our historical elements in our historical ballpark and our alumni in a new and exciting way. And there's a lot of excitement at Fenway for AR in particular right now. I know initially when we first kind of launched into XR a few years ago, we really were focused on VR. We executed a home run derby activation in the ballpark, which was a big hit, and then we followed that up with a virtual reality dugout where we host all of our VR content. And now everyone is super gung-ho about augmented reality at Fenway. And we just launched our first sort of full-time permanent AR in the ballpark just about a month ago. And this is my world now. I'm here to learn. I'm here to make connections. Hopefully I'll have conversations with lots of you guys, and happy to show off and talk about what we're doing.
So before we get into the discussion, we thought it would be good if we kind of gave an overview of what choices, how leagues and brands can actually activate an AR. So if you're not familiar with the space, some of this might be quite new, but basically for a brand, you can go, there are many different ways. You can, at the simplest end is web AR, simple in the sense that the user doesn't need to download an app, which is a huge element of friction when you're trying to reach a consumer. So they can just go to URL, follow a QR code, and then you can see, AR content through that. The difficulty there is that the brand has the lift of trying to communicate and spread that URL. Whereas if you went through social AR, which is through an existing large platform like Facebook, Instagram, or Snap, they already have a user base that already has a behavior that uses AR. So if you buy a lens or an effect through that, it's like a known channel that you can push through. And then if you have your own app, especially that already has an install base, then the option is to either create a AR module that goes into that app, or create a AR app itself, a separate app for mobile, which requires additional lift to get users to download that. Or further on, HMD on the head-mounted side, there's of course several devices that are out now, from Magic Leap to HoloLens 2 to Unreal, which is a kind of more lightweight version. And then further from that is location-based, so some of the things that Devon was showing. And that could be all different types of technology, depending on the situation. And then finally, I think broadcast, which is kind of taking off now. NBA did an announcement last week that was quite interesting, where they're augmenting the live feed, kind of like when someone made a dunk, you'd see animation over that, or but it's all kind of machine learning over the video feed. And the advantage of the broadcast side is the consumer doesn't need a device either in hand or on their glasses. They just watch the TV screen. So, any other thoughts?
No.
And of course, these apply at home or in stadium as well, or at event. So we wanted to kind of dig into what were the issues when it actually comes to implementation. So first off is technology. Like what are the challenges that you guys see?
Sure, I'll kick this one off. So we've had a couple challenges with our technology working in the mixed reality space. The first example is with our data. We use a proprietary data system called ShotLink, which has all of the competition data for our tournaments and for our players. And we ran into a couple of different issues with it. The first being our proprietary data system has its own GPS-like system, coordinate system, and that doesn't talk to the regular GPS system that we all use in our phones. So we had to come up with a mapping to actually have those two systems talk to each other so that we could solve that problem. The second problem that we had the challenge with was having Z coordinates. So we have X and Y coordinates for everything that we do, but we don't have Z coordinates. And so we had to go through a process to actually get that Z coordinate added, record it, add it to our data feeds, and then pull it into our experiences. And the third challenge is really the accuracy of the GPS in all of your phones sitting in your pockets right now. When we're at a golf course, we're trying to create this experience where if you're looking at a green and you point your phone there, you'll be able to see the pin flag on the green. And I know with my eyes that pin flag is right there. It's 5 feet to my right. But my phone is telling me that it's 10 feet to my left. And so as a fan, that's a really terrible experience because you know what you see with your own eyes and the technology is telling you something else. And the reason for this challenge is because of the level of accuracy for GPS. It's only about 10 to 15 feet. So when you're far away from that green, it looks great, everything is perfect, but the closer and closer you get to that green, the less and less accurate it becomes. So that's something that we're really challenged with. We're currently looking for solutions and testing solutions for this. And that's the thing that will get us to the point where we'll actually be able to put out an on-site AR experience for our fans to use while at the tournament.
Yeah, and I could speak to the struggles of putting on an on-site AR activation. It's something I've been going through over the past 6 months. We do have the limitations of the technology. Last year, we were really working hard with MLB to send them 2 sets of files every time we uploaded assets for Android and for iPhone. This past offseason, they sort of wiped their hands with Android, and we're really, the developers there are really focused on ARKit. But when you have that many assets live in a ecosystem like that, they need to all be working consistently, even when you've got 50,000 people in the stadium. And you know, if they're not working and people don't have a really good experience quickly, it sort of defeats the purpose. And the whole idea is in the engagement. And if that glitches on you, it completely defeats the purpose. So really dealing with the hardware limitations that we have in this current ecosystem is sort of our biggest issue right now.
Yeah, and I think to echo some of that, like from what we've seen, and especially in sports, is the idea of like real-time syncing is so important, you know? Like if some play happens and then the data is 2 seconds late or something, like it just feels broken very easily.
Yeah.
So I know technically for us, like, and we've definitely seen it in stadium, the Wi-Fi issues, things like that. It's so you not only have like a bandwidth issue of getting the data broadcast out to the consumer, but you also, for the consumer to download it, especially in stadium, is a big issue. So,
and I will add on, it's very challenging for us to test, because when we're testing, there's nobody in the ballpark, so we really need to kind of put stuff out there, then go around and test while all the other fans are in there trying to use the application to really see how it's working. So you can test for weeks, everything works great. All of a sudden, you're at a press event, or the fans are there. You need it to be working then. So it becomes, the testing side becomes more challenging.
Yeah, it's even more challenging on a golf course because you've got, with a stadium, you have this sort of fixed space that you're working with for Wi-Fi coverage. And when you try to spread that out across hundreds of acres, in some cases, of a golf course, like you kind of have these hot spots where like, here's really good Wi-Fi here, and here's really good Wi-Fi here at these like really popular holes. But when you try to cover the entire course, it's extremely cost prohibitive. So we're working through that in our internal departments, as well as with different partners, to try and test new ways for coverage, and throwing in even things like cellular, or partners with AT&T, and certainly 5G is an interesting idea, and that will really, really help us get to the point where we can create these really exciting experiences for on-site.
yeah, I know everyone's holding their breath for 5G, and it'll bring connectivity in stadium,
Yes.
out on the course. It'll bring like millimeter accuracy
I need it.
instead of GPS. So yeah, it can't come soon enough.
Nope.
And then also with 5G, what happens? Because of the larger pipe, you can also deliver much bigger content. So if you think about like volumetric video or things like that, things that you can't deliver now, with 5G, hopefully that enables that.
Trying to keep our assets under 10 megs sometimes is very, very challenging.
So I think this one is super interesting because I think especially because you guys have great history in this legacy sports brands, but then also probably a broader audience base than some other sports.
Yeah, we've got a challenge with the PGA Tour. Our audience is a little on the older side in some cases, and so this intersection of people who are extremely interested in technology, in emerging technology specifically, as well as huge golf fans, is pretty small. So that Venn diagram, there's like a little sliver in between where that overlap occurs. And so reaching that group of people and targeting them can be a challenge. And then really this barrier to entry, right? A lot of our experiences are built into our mobile apps. And if a person doesn't have a mobile app downloaded onto their phone on course already, getting them to download it on course where they've got challenging Wi-Fi and cellular connections, and then asking them to go through the process of onboarding through the app.
It's shockingly hard.
It's shockingly hard. And then a person who's never used a phone-based AR experience before, trying to actually walk them through how to use the technology while they're on site trying to enjoy time with their family and friends can be a real challenge. And so we've done our best to incorporate instructions for the user for how to use this new technology. It's just, sometimes it's too much for someone who's on site having a great time with their family and friends.
Really quick story. The first AR activation we had at Fenway Park was this last year was a kind of like a virtual baseball card sweepstakes that we had at the gates. And we tied in season tickets, Green Monster tickets, merchandise, signed autographed items, all sorts of cool stuff. And I'm at the gates, I'm like, hey, do this. And there's people like, oh, what do I need to do? Oh, you just need to download this ballpark app. Nah, I'm done, I'm going. I'm like, you can win season tickets. And we actually I'm like, please, why not? Why? Download the app, win. It doesn't cost anything. And that was sort of a rude awakening for me, that it's like, man, all you have to do is download the app, but it's something worth just keeping in the back of mind, kind of moving forward to not only thinking about the UX side and how clean that can be, but just the barrier for entry.
Yeah.
Knock it down.
This is why. So I'm actually working now on a project experimenting with Web AR. We're working with our friends over at the Golf Hall of Fame in St. Augustine, and so we've actually gone into the Hall of Fame. We've taken objects out and we've scanned them to create these virtualized versions of them. And we're creating this long-form story where we're going to tell a story about each one of the items that we've scanned and put that out as sort of a long form that will allow our fans to enjoy the stories of the items that are in the Hall of Fame without actually having to step foot in the Hall of Fame. So it's a cool way to bring history of the sport for some of the older audience in with the technology that we're working with and experimenting with. And so my hope is that I can bring those two parts of the Venn diagram together and create a bigger sliver in the circle there.
I'm with you, because I think the historical elements are the perfect way to take the new technology and bring our core demographic, rope them into the new technology, because there's certainly that resonates with them.
And to reiterate how hard it is to get people to download an app, I think like the best way to approach that is also, when we show that kind of almost campaign slide of all those different ways to reach people, like instead of just betting on one horse, you take that content and you repurpose it and you bet it across multiple channels.
Absolutely. And I think the idea of distributing content in that way really jives well with kind of the way that we work as a creative services department in general, right? You produce content, and then you don't just put it into one narrow avenue. You use that content as best you can across various platforms. So that should apply to AR and XR as well.
The other thing that we found that worked on the AR side, interestingly enough, was like a lot of AR is kind of focused on kind of marketing attention and breaking through the noise and stuff. But what we found really effective in the past was at point of sale, doing something completely just kind of boring but very functional and useful. That actually has a ton of usage. And the great thing is like it kind of builds that behavior for the consumer. So you had kind of briefly mentioned it as well. Like besides building this technology, I think half the challenge is deployment and education.
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned earlier the sort of struggle in getting people who've never used this type of technology before to actually download and use it and do it in a way that is frictionless for them. So I won't spend a lot of time on that. But there's another aspect of this which has been a challenge for me, especially in a more traditional sport, which is working with our sponsors and partners and friends of the PGA Tour has been challenging, because they always want to know, what are we getting in return? What is our return on investment when we do projects like this? These types of projects can be very expensive. They can be time consuming because it's the first time you're doing it. Sometimes it takes some time to figure it out. And it doesn't always have, we don't always have when we're finished the metrics and reporting that we would for a normal activation with a sponsor. And so they want to know what are they getting in return, and in most cases they're expecting, you know, eyeballs or lead generation, whatever the normal things are. But in these cases, sometimes we're saying, well, you're really buying, you know, cool factor and street cred and earned media and PR. You're not buying eyeballs like you would normally buy. So there's a sort of education process that has to take place when we talk with our partners and friends. I don't know if you have the same challenge, but it's
100%.
definitely something that I've struggled through the last couple of years.
We're living in parallel universes for sure. Think about it this way: at Fenway Park, we are literally out of physical real estate to put sponsor signage at this point. So sponsors are looking for digital content to be able to brand, and we've done it on a lot of social digital content. You know, Benjamin Moore, homestand highlights, the top shots, LL Bean. But now they want to get into this space. So they come to us and they're like, what can we do? What can we do? And then we have meetings, we come up with great concepts, we pitch them. And then when the final, you know, at where we are right now, once they see the final price and they have difficulty really gauging that ROI compared to, you know, traditional media spends, that's when things kind of fizzle out. And then I'm back here, I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? Let's get on the phone, let's execute this cool idea. So that's been a real barrier for us as well. And but the frustrating part is there's so much interest from their end that we just need to bridge that gap and really execute.
One of the things that has worked for me in trying to address some of that is we actually set aside a dedicated innovation budget for the year. And so we set that money aside so that we can build these proof of concepts and experiments to show them what it looks like and show what their brand would look like. In some cases, that actually helps because they can see it. It's hard sometimes to pitch an idea for this really cool new technology, forward-leaning concept, and it's just really hard to grasp. And so we build these experiments so that we can share with them and say, hey, look at what we've done. This could be your brand, and we can build it however you want. I don't know if that's something that you've had.
Yeah, I mean,
on the vendor side.
we definitely have that challenge on the vendor side. Like, I think that for us, the money's kind of coming from two buckets. It's either coming from an innovation fund, which is great, where people want to experiment and be first, or we're seeing a lot of budgets coming from the marketing fund that's coming out of their social budget. So the expectations are actually, it's like, we call it single-use XR, you know, for Snap and Facebook and things like that, but it's not particularly deep, but it gives them kind of broader numbers.
The single-use stuff is really, I try to find stuff that's more evergreen, that my sponsors can use across tournaments week over week as opposed to just one single activation. It's just so expensive to build right now, and building for one tournament and not being able to reuse it is just like, for some sponsors, it's just really difficult to swallow. And so we try to push them toward ideas that will help them become a little more evergreen in what they're building.
I mean, what is the one stat you think that will convince them to do it?
That's a tough one for me. Right now, I'm leaning pretty heavily on earned media. It's hard to quantify at times, but I think when you start to look at the sheer volume of what happens when the sports tech community starts to look at what you're doing, I think it can be really compelling.
I'd like to see more sort of user-generated content to come out of the AR experience, and I think that's one thing we're kind of working towards right now. If a fan is at Fenway Park using their mobile device to create an activation, right now they don't have the ability quickly to share on social and push that hashtag out and really start to, and then you'll get the metrics that are associated with that. And that's really important for us for kind of next steps.
Can they push out to the Jumbotron now?
Not yet. Maybe there's been some discussion about Jumbotron, but again, if it's on our big screen, it can't go off. It can't become viral. It can't become. So I've not gotten very far with the Jumbotron stuff. I think really social is sort of where we're aiming for that.
So we have